Let's face it, the vast majority of the time revealing that an ending was all just a dream is a lazy way of justifying trippy imagery or slapping you with a fat jump scare without doubling down on explaining why. Sometimes, and I do mean sometimes, it works, but mostly it's just a get-out-of-jail-free card for escaping a narrative dead end. But how about when we shift that waking up moment and have a self-contained nightmare in a film all on its own? What then? Well, usually we get a uniquely terrifying situation unburdened with real-world logic, meaning a baby can crawl across the ceiling like a big fleshy spider, and pink elephants can scare you away from watching Disney movies ever again. So of course, horror movies make the most of this in the most nightmarish ways. And they crop up often enough for dreams to be their own spine-chilling convention. 9, 10, never sleep again, lest you dream of any of these traumatizing encounters. I am the waking nightmare, Ash from WhatCulture Horror, and these are 10 terrifying dream sequences in horror movies. 10. Reg's Dream Baby, In Fabric. 2019's In Fabric is the strange, spooky story of a haunted dress. Look, like the director's earlier hit, Barbarian Sound Studio, it is far scarier than it sounds, and a lot of this scariness comes from the film's foreboding atmosphere, an unsettling, dreamlike tone which renders the potentially ludicrous story surprisingly chilling. Director Strickland utilises the giallo aesthetic of 70s Italian horror to ground this odd anthology, rooting its strange story in colourful sets and skewed camera angles. Never is this more pronounced and more deeply creepy than in the sequence where poor Reg recounts his nightmare to a pair of flippant superiors. This odd sequence owes a debt to the king of weirdness, David Lynch, particularly Eraserhead, as Reg looks on in horror, seeing his wife give birth as uncaring physicians refuse to let him inside the delivery room. However, even Lynch stopped short of having his leading man scream cathartically in an attempt to carry his wife's agony, not to mention the creepy and undeniably funny spectacle of his newborn baby flipping him off upon its messy exit. She wasn't having it, indeed. 9. The whole film. The Evil Within. Not to be confused with the video game series of the same name, 2017's The Evil Within is a film whose tortured production process is almost as infamous as the movie itself. The film was financed almost entirely by the director Andrew Getty, who had no prior experience as a filmmaker, and took over a decade and a half to complete. It's an unsettling piece of semi-autobiography which gave life to its creators' persistent nightmares. And what nightmares they are! The otherwise unremarkable movie is filled with vivid, evocative, and utterly horrifying dream sequences, most of which were achieved by stretching the boundaries of what in-camera effects can do. Recounting all the film's many nightmares would take all day, not to mention the fact that at many points it's impossible to tell whether the film is presenting reality or another dream. Suffice it to say that within the opening reel, a demon has emerged from a mirror, attached a zipper to our young hero's back, and unzipped him to climb inside. Good. 8. Ripley's surprise offspring, Aliens. The chestburster may be the most iconic scene in the Alien series, but the sequel's chilling nightmare gives it a run for its money in terms of sheer visceral impact. As Ripley comes to terms with awakening from hypersleep, she learns that not only is her ordeal on the Nostromo over, but surprise, she's been out of commission for over 50 years. As if that weren't enough, she soon learns that she is actually pregnant with a little baby xenomorph of her own. There's not a lot of gore actually on display in this effective sequence, with ingenious sound design elevating a heartbeat to deafening volume and Sigourney Weaver's exorcist-worthy contortions doing the majority of the work. The result is a horrifying sequence so effective that Ridley Scott couldn't resist redoing it in far gorier detail when he made Prometheus. 7. David's Double Dream Inception, An American Werewolf in London. Did this one deserve the top spot? After all, the horror comedy hit An American Werewolf in London is the only movie on this list which pulls off the infamous double dream reveal. In what must be the most genuinely scary scene in this classic, David is at home with his family, with the group gathered together to watch The Muppets at Christmas time. One ring of the doorbell later, the family are besieged and brutally slaughtered in short order by monstrous, pig-faced Nazi werewolves. Poor David wakes up shook, but fortunately his nurse is sitting by the bedside ready to reassure him. Or at least, it seems that way, until she opens the curtains and promptly gets gutted by another Nazi werewolf. A horrifying spectacle which prompts a shattered, shaky David to wake up again. It's a movie that knows how to deliver a scary sequence, dated effects and all. 6. Veronica's Dream Birth, The Fly. What is it with horror movies and dreaming of babies? Whether it's poor Reg of In Fabric or the ballsier Ripley fighting with the contents of her own uterus. The genre seems to love turning the miracle of pregnancy into a bloody horror show. Sounds about right. However, those earlier examples pale in comparison to classic horror remake The Fly. This film from body horror master David Cronenberg can claim the dubious honour of including maybe the most infamous dream birth in horror history. This time, it's Geena Davis who's on the operating table, accompanied by one half of a tragic love triangle as she struggles and succeeds in giving birth to a giant, writhing maggot. Thanks, Dave, for the most effective contraception ad ever created. 5. Alice's Not Quite Ending. Friday the 13th. You all knew this list had to include the dream sequence which unintentionally created one of horror history's most enduring monsters, right? Yes, hockey masked icon Jason Voorhees may have a storied history all these decades later, having survived countless sequels, a reboot, a face-off with Dream Demon Freddy Krueger, and even an appearance on Arsenio Hall. Scariest of all. But he doesn't feature much in the original movie, bar one poignant scene at the end. Cut to Alice sitting alone on a canoe on a sunny morning, tracing a finger through the tranquil water, only for young Jason's waterlogged corpse to leap out and drag her under into the briny depths. Of course, it's all just a dream, and as such, cinema-goers could head home comfortable in the knowledge that this was the last they would hear from young Mr. Voorhees. I mean, until the 11 sequels came out, at least. 4. Tina's Nightmare. A Nightmare on Elm Street. Considering the whole nature of A Nightmare on Elm Street is about scaring kids to death in their dreams, we are not deprived of terrifying dream sequences across the Elm Street franchise. From watching Jesse be possessed by Freddy Krueger to torture his coach, to seeing Jennifer's head smashed through a TV screen in some prime-time entertainment, the Elm Street series has something for everyone should they dare sleep in Freddy's presence. And whilst a little shout-out has to be given to the Cockroach Nightmare, it is Tina's early dream sequence that establishes quite what level of terror we're dealing with. Hunted by Krueger as he stretches his arms to unfathomable lengths, cuts his own fingers off, and allows the skin to be sloughed from his skull, Tina's dream is nightmare fuel at its finest. Quite literally. Even more so when it breaks into the real world and results in her slashing right in front of her terrified boyfriend. 3. Rachel's Family Reunion. Pet Sematary. This one really stings since it's a sequence which is as harrowing as it is scary, and its bungled omission from last year's Pet Sematary remake serves to prove that sometimes dead really is better. Mary Lambert's 1989 Pet Sematary, though, adds a pinch of pitch black comedy to the tragic tale of a parent desperately attempting to revive his young son. This particularly effective sequence sees his wife Rachel dreaming of her sister Zelda, who died an untimely death thanks to spinal meningitis which left her limbs compromised. This being the horror genre, the film doesn't do much to empathise with poor Zelda's plight, but it's impossible to witness her contorted frame without being struck by an intense cocktail of horror and sympathy. And the sequence milks this uncomfortable sensation for all it is worth, as Rachel envisions her sister calling out to her, only to awaken after a gasp-inducing glimpse of her sunken eyes. 2. Sister Jean's Blasphemous Dream. The Devils. Starring Oliver Reed as a charismatic priest accused of witchcraft for inciting a series of exorcisms, and a career-best Vanessa Redgrave as the repressed nun who is obsessed with him, The Devils is a heady fever dream from start to finish. Colourful, bloody, and erotically charged, it's an intense slice of cinema which is must-see viewing for horror fans and had a long-lasting influence on the genre, evidenced as recently as Ari Aster's hit Midsommar. However, the film is also filled with all manner of shamelessly blasphemous imagery, as epitomised by its infamous dream sequence. Sister Jean, our aforementioned repressed hero, envisions Reed's priest as Christ walking on water, resulting in a cyclone and screeching mockery from her fellow nuns in this deeply creepy, hallucinatory scene. 1. Size Nightmare. 1 hour photo. 1 hour photo story of a troubled photo technician who becomes obsessed with a seemingly perfect family features one of the late, great Robin Williams' most impressively against-type roles. As the creepy, seemingly harmless Psy, Williams drops the nervous energy and instead offers an unsettling portrait of a deeply damaged man attempting to insert himself into a family's life against their wishes. So, a horror remix of Miss Doubtfire, then. Unlike that earlier comedy though, 1 hour photo also features a horrifying nightmare sequence which more than makes up for its lack of on-screen deaths. It is a simple enough setup which sees our hero dream of a blank white room and features him bleeding profusely from his eyes before he awakens with a scream. It's also an unforgettably gruesome and visceral sequence which reaffirms the film's theme of never trusting appearances with the subtlety of a hammer blow. And that's our list. What other terrifying dream sequences belong on this list? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I've been Ash over on social media at Ash Millman, and this has been WhatCulture. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and come back again soon for some more spine-tingling horror content. Thanks for watching.